Alright everyone, welcome to Nightmare Creatures Podcast. I've got a really great show for you tonight. I'm here in-house with one of my close friends. His name's James Ansley. He's an amateur cryptozoologist. Ansley, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our viewers a little bit about you?
Alright, my name's James Ansley. Do a bunch of different things. Amateur cryptozoologist is not my main job, sadly, because that doesn't pay the bills. But in my free time, I'm constantly researching cryptids and different things that pique my interest. Like, take for example, extinct creatures that are recently coming back in to living proof that they still exist. They were shown in fossil records as extinct, but still exist. Regular biology. I'm a nature guy. I grew up in the woods. It's what I love. I hunt, I fish. It's my hobbies. And I really wasn't into cryptozoology until the first time I had my own little strange encounter. And if you're good at that, I'll go ahead and get in that today.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I will never forget it. It was about 5 years ago. I was going up to Columbus, Georgia, because my wife had got this thing in the mail at the time we were trying to get married, and she said she got an invitation from a bridal magazine about, hey, come check out this seminar about cookware. So, being the loving husband that I was to be, I got drug all the way to Columbus, Georgia for a pots and pan show. Well, on the way back, it's about 9 o'clock at night, and we're leaving Columbus, Georgia, heading back to Union Springs, Alabama. To get through there, you got to go through Tuskegee National Forest. And it was dark night, no moon. So as I was carrying on, we're driving, and you know when you're driving down an old road and there's no street lights, because for those of you that are in the cities right now and not really from the country, we have swaths of acreage where there's not even power lines. It's just 2 lanes of blacktop, and about 5 feet in off of that's pine trees.
Yep.
It's just dark as all get out. Well, there's this weird thing that happens at night when you're driving. If there's something in the road, it seems darker than the darkness around it. I don't know how to explain that. So me and my wife were listening to music. We're talking. I come around a bend in the road, and just up ahead, out of the depth of my headlights, I see something dark in the road. I'm like, there's something in the road. And you know, the natural instinct is turn on your high beams. Yeah. So I turn my high beams on, and I get a glint of just this like orange, like metallic orange, like somebody's beard, like, you know, a redheaded person's beard. And it's out of the light before you know it. But you can still make out the silhouette of it. And whatever this thing was, it was big. I mean, this was one corn-fed hoss. And the thing that messed me out about it the most is it was standing in the middle of the road. And it bolted for the right side of the road. And it took it in about 5 to 6 strides. And the thing about it is when it walked, you could physically see it walking just in the edge of the headlights, like a silhouette shadowed outline, but it was too fluid. It was too smooth. It seemed like it glided.
Really?
So I turned the radio off. I look at my wife, and I was like, did you just see that? And she's like, yeah. And the weirdest part about it was, by the time we got to the point in the road where that thing had crossed the road, you talk about a stink. It smelled like somebody had hit a skunk there.
Wow.
And it just rotted in the road. So after that, I was like, you know, I swear I didn't just see some 8-foot tall dude just out in the middle of nowhere in the Tuskegee National Forest. You know, it was a bear. It was something. I wasn't thinking about it. Right. But the more I think about it, I was like, I have grown up in woods my whole life. I've hunted, I've fished, I've seen bear, I've seen mountain lions, I've seen deer.
Yeah.
I've seen all sorts of the illustrious critters of nature that God has the gods have to offer. And I ain't never seen anything move like that. That thing was nimble.
Now, when you say it strode, it moved, it glided.
Like, you know how when you see somebody walking, there's a bounce to their step?
Right.
Like, you can actually see the physical movement of walking.
Yeah, the weight.
Nah, it's just the legs, and the way the legs and the arms swing, there was no jerky motion to its locomotion. It was just smooth. Like, you could tell this, whatever it was, could run through trees, thick grass, uneven terrain. It's just, he had a dexterity about him that you do not see outside of animals like deer or large cats.
Right.
There's no blunderingness to it. You could tell it was big, but you can tell it was nimble.
Professional mover.
Pretty much.
That's wild. Is there any possible way that it was a bear? A lot of people want to say bear stand on two legs.
Yes, bear stand on two legs, but in rare scenarios do you ever see a bear actually ambulate on two legs. They'll hop up. It's a threat of pose for when they feel startled or something's encroaching their territory.
Yeah.
They get on their hind legs and they bolster up and say, hey, dude, my house, step the F off.
Right.
You're not going to see a bear just out in the middle of the road decide he's going to walk around looking for the next picnic basket. I'm sorry. But for all those people that want to say it's a bear, trust me, I've spent a couple sleepless nights after that. I kind of wished it was a bear.
Yeah. So it's definitely not a bear that found a skunk in the road.
Nope, because then I started, you start going off on Google. Everybody's first trip into cryptozoology is to Google foo something.
Yeah.
And then you got some good things you find. You got some alright things you find. And then you got like cringe lord level photoshoppings.
Right.
Like clickbait videos.
Yeah.
But I've always been interested in the natural world. So I started with, alright, let's see. People are saying could be Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Das Foot, whatever you want to call them.
Das Boot?
Das Foot. Local joke name for
Das
him.
Foot.
The foot.
I love it.
But anyways, so I went and I dug out my old biology books and I started researching primates, Gigantopithecus, the older Homo sapiens and hominids before that one, before humans, took the main strain of the evolutionary chain.
Yeah.
And I started watching the ambulatory patterns of silverback gorillas, but it doesn't quite hit right. There's silhouette similarities, but there's not what I saw.
Right. Was it moving like the Patterson footage?
Not so much as the Patterson, more crunched down, like, oh crap, I just got caught, time to skedaddle.
Trying to get down low?
Ouched low, shoulders were arched up, leaned forward, and real long strides of the arms.
Right.
Like the legs, he was pretty much utilizing his full gait.
Right. Now, here's something that I've noticed. Local areas, they like to put their own names on things. I know Florida, we have the skunk ape. In a lot of other places, it's just Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of places where you get Sasquatch sightings, and that smell is involved. That's pretty much across the board, actually.
Florida has the skunk ape.
Right.
Skunk apes can generally, the colloquial is pretty much used in Louisiana as well.
Yeah.
And there's different names. Like Ohio has the grassman.
Right.
I'm from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They made a movie about it actually back in the day, but there's a story about the Navidad Valley. They had what they called the wild man of the Navidad.
Okay.
So a bunch of cattle ranchers and stuff were getting pestered and harassed by this giant, what they considered wild man.
Yeah.
But just big as all get out.
Okay.
The movie differentiates from the actual people's farmers. Then in the movie it shows them attacking campers and the guy in his ranch and all that. Mostly it just killed a buttload of goats.
Yeah.
But you got to think, 90% of all simians are omnivores.
Right.
There's very few vegetarian or herbivore apes of any type.
Yeah, it's not calorically
And if you
dense
look
enough.
at the evolutionary chain of humanity, when we went from more ape-like to where we're at now, it took the development of the trait where we were ingesting proteins, animal proteins.
Yeah.
Because the ingestions and the breakdowns of those animal proteins started stimulating brain cell development. That's where you got enhanced frontal lobes and different areas of the brain to branch out from that real primate size inner core of where the spine columns pretty much connects to the thought box.
Right. And we're not pushing evolution or religion on anybody. This is all, this is just our thought process in it.
So it makes sense that, in Texas it's a drought-ridden area.
Right.
pretty much you have wild game movements, but things are smaller. Like you look at, like, for all you people that hunt, anybody that's an avid hunter tell you, you go to Idaho, you go to Oregon, you go up north to the Appalachians, all the way up to Maine area. In Pennsylvania, the corn farms, where it gets a more rain, more lush environment, you got huge deer.
Yeah.
In Texas, we got dogs with antlers. And coyotes. We have a metric ton of coyotes.
Yeah.
We have quail, grouse, dove, all this thing. We got rivers, but most of them go dry. So if you think about it, if you got a large ape of some type in an environment, it has to spend so much energy on resource allocation for survival. You factor in, you got a bunch of cattle and goat farms out in the middle of nowhere that are sparsely populated. Texas has some ranch, like Texas has a ranch called the King Ranch that's bigger than the state of Rhode Island.
Wow, I haven't heard about that.
The King Ranch of Texas is bigger than the state of Rhode Island, and it's actually got a village that has been on that ranch since when Texas was part of Mexico. And there's localized traditions just to that little group of native people that have been interbred with the ranch hand workers that live there.
Okay.
But you think you got so many acres per person that it's not even funny. So if a rancher's got 450 head of goat, what's it going to take for a large primate to be like, I can spend 3 days, chasing a deer across this freaking pasture, or I can go over to that salt lick over there at nighttime or the watering trough and set up an ambush.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's easy pickings for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And as big as you are, if you're a Sasquatch, every calorie counts.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Your every step, every day has to be measured.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's a lot of wild vegetation you can survive off of if you know where to look out there.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you still got, for the amount of bang for their buck, it needs me. And I actually got a story from somebody that talks about where it pretty much cemented in place the more carnivorous features of these creatures.
Nice. Come on.
It's third party, so I can't validate any of this.
Okay.
So you'll just have to take it for what it is. Hunting buddy. He was hunting up North Alabama.
Okay.
And there's a creek lay. He set a deer stand up. And he was hog hunting. And I'm a hog hunt enthusiast. I've spear hunted hogs and I'll just regular hunt hogs, but that is the best hunt you'll ever do.
Yeah.
So he's up in this tree stand overlooking this little flat marshy area where the little creek's running. And he's been smelling something on and off all day. He thought, just creature died upstream. He wasn't thinking about it. And he's been dead quiet. No bugs, no nothing. And he told me in the story, that's what should have tipped him off first. The lack of insects or any ambient forest noise.
Yeah.
So that stink kind of faded away. And early in the morning, he got out there before dawn. Stink kind of faded away. Around 9 or 10 o'clock, he's thinking, all right, man, I'm getting done. I'm fed up. Well, so it's been like 2 hours after that stink faded away, he said, and then he starts hearing the rutting of hogs. And one comes down and starts watering. Well, he goes to take that bow, pull that string back, and he says he saw a large, hairy animal come up with about a tree stump about that big around, club it up the back of the head, just one hit with a loud thuddering.
Whoa.
And in a blur, he was just freaked out, started climbing down his tree stand. He said it started hooting and growling at him, but he says the way he described it was the growl wasn't so much audible in his ears, like he could hear it was loud, but he felt it in its chest, like reverberate.
Yeah.
He said kind of like what a tiger does, that low growl.
Right.
And he says he ran the hell away. He said the creature didn't pursue him. He just said it looked up from what it was doing, bowed up at him, and he just took off. He just slid down the ladder and got the hell out.
Yeah, it wouldn't take me much either.
You talk about a brown trousers moment right there.
Bro, that's crazy.
Unfortunately, I'm very limited in the stories I can tell of that from people I get to talk to, because not everybody wants to talk to you when you start with amateur cryptozoologists.
Yeah.
I mean, you got sites like BFRO, and you got these other established cryptozoology organizations that people will talk to.
Right.
But for me, it's mostly third-hand research, a lot of field time in the woods. Like, in fact, something you were talking about me earlier a couple days ago, I'm actually seriously looking into that Blackwater expedition. Would that be something you'd interest to go with me on?
Oh, God, yeah, I'd love that. They have got some serious problems going on down there. If you're not familiar, I've mentioned this before. I run this podcast out of Florida, and not too far away from us is Blackwater State Park. And Blackwater State Park is known from a lot of people to have Sasquatch in it. And recently, I've heard from a couple of people, very reliable sources, that Sasquatch are actually getting kind of crazy over there. They're attacking campers, and they're ransacking campsites. It's getting pretty wild. The park rangers actually are contacting outside organizations. They don't really know what to do about it.
Well, if you think about it historically, from all the Bigfoot sightings, everything loosely termed under the term Bigfoot sighting. If you take the skunk apes in the most Florida sightings, they tend to be the most aggressive breed.
Yeah.
Like, you got that famous case from the 90s where it mauled up a van, and that old lady's got that picture of it sitting in the palm fronds.
Yeah.
But 90%, when you look at, I guarantee I'm willing to bet $1.
Yeah.
I mean, my last dollar on this. If you take every aggressive Bigfoot sighting,
Yeah.
you're going to find 80 to 90% of them in Florida.
I know. And what is the deal? What is going on with that?
Honestly, I'd have to say it's the more diverse ecosystem we live in here.
Yeah.
If you look up north in Oregon, you don't have too many apex predators.
Right.
You don't. You got a bear or two and maybe a cougars, but wolves are died out.
Yeah.
We've killed off wolves, and they're not as aggressive there because the deer and elk breed prolifically. Because if you think about it, we've killed 90% of our wolf population off, our mountain lion population off. Most of our upper timberland area apex predators have been hunted to extinction due to cattle ranching. So the deer population has boomed.
Right.
There's not a lot of need for an animal to be as aggressive because of food constraints.
I've never thought about that.
But
Makes
if
a
you
lot of
take
sense.
in Florida, we're an economic development zone. We got a lot of tourism. We got a lot of new buildings coming up. Our wetlands are wild areas. They shrink. We got, especially around cotton and soy and peanut season, the farmers clear cut everything and they start plowing, and then they just let it grow back next year. So if you take on the Bellamy wetland area where everybody's wanting to put in a condo, and then you take in our natural apex predators, we got alligator, we got bull sharks that come into fresh water, so much as that. But we also got pumas, the jaguars, the black ones, and mountain lions, and we got wild dogs, and we got coyotes. Panthers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of natural, large carnivorous animals that do imbibe on the local livestock populations and the herbivores of the area.
And hunters everywhere.
Everybody hunts.
Yeah.
That's why I love living around here. Great hunting.
More
But
competition
if
for
you
food.
think about it, what we talked about earlier, a large primate would need X amount of resources, majority of which would probably be fish, if it's a wetland dwelling type of Sasquatch, like the skunk ape or the Honey Island monster. I don't know if you're familiar. That one's more of a reptile. I don't know how I feel about that one. The whole three toes thing is kind of throwing me off. I haven't seen an established fossil record for the development of bipedal three toes.
Right.
Outside of birds and large reptiles.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another subject. Jury's still out on that with me. But as the skunk ape goes, the area is harsher. If you think of Florida, it's diet Australia.
Right.
The flavor of Australia would have the venomous calories.
Yeah.
So things tend to need to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit hardier out here. Now you take in mind that these animals have developed in this ecosystem. They've probably had to have a higher fight to flight sequence in their instinct. So factor in, 10 or 12 generations of something predating you, you're probably going to develop a more offensive stance. And if you look back to our earliest ancestors, we utilized tools and fire to overcome the predations of the animals that were hunting us. And if you look how human nature is, the side effect of self-defense is aggressiveness.
Yeah.
So it's possible to have, the Ohio Grassman, who everybody's got the story of, most he'll bow up, spook you off, or the Oregon and Washington northwestern Sasquatch, your stereotypical Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Where, unless you're poking them with a stick or all up in their area trying, hooting, beating, stick knocking, they're really not going to mess with you.
You're right.
Unless you just happen to be, I'm going to build a new wood cabin somewhere that 10 or 12 generations of that tribe has lived.
Right. I spent a year in Washington State, in Bremerton, and I spoke to a ton of people who claim to have had Sasquatch sightings, and I can't for the life of me think of any of them that were aggressive.
Yeah, but there's no need for them to be.
Right. You're right.
Down here, there is a need for that.
I've never thought about that.
You think 10 or 12, like I said, 10 or 12 generations of that, you're probably going to start seeing through the process of who lived long enough to make a baby.
Right.
You probably see things like, bigger adrenaline glands, larger size, quicker instinct, more fight and flight instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you take it a fact that with the shrinking ecosystem, you probably got about 5 or 12 different major groups of Sasquatch. Honestly, it's a personal opinion of mine. I don't know if it's been validated yet. It probably won't be validated until we actually have one on a table somewhere. I hate to say it.
Unfortunately.
But for mainstream science to accept the fact that these creatures exist, it's going to take one on an autopsy table.
Yeah.
But my theory of why our regional Sasquatch are so aggressive actually coincides when you think about the amount of Sasquatch or giant hominid apes around the world to where the more inhospitable the environment is compared to where it isn't. You start seeing a higher aggressive factor. Like, we'll take the basic run-of-the-mill silverback gorilla. We didn't even know that thing existed until like 80, 100 years ago.
Right.
And at the time, all the people going around Africa, like all the explorers from the National Geographic Society, all the railroad companies that were hired back then, what a biologist and somebody was called a naturalist. They'd hear stories from these tribes of the giant hairy man that lives in the woods.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, yeah, up at the mountains, there's a hairy man that's booga, booga, booga gonna get you. Well, now we call him the silverback gorilla.
Right. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
They existed. At the time, it was hoshposh. It was tales of, I do say, it's just those local savages in their religious moshposh tales.
Right.
So, but if you look at it, you take silverback gorilla, extremely territorial, violent as hell on some occasions, but will leave you the hell alone 90% of the time. Excellent ability to survive through natural flora and fauna it can ingest and survive off of. Right. Now let's take everybody's favorite red-butted bastard, the baboon.
Right.
More savanna-dwelling simian ape. Lives in a harsher area of Africa. That thing is Satan with a red butt. It will literally eat babies.
Yeah. You're not right.
Both of them are primates.
Right.
Both of them have harsher environments. One has harsher environment than the other. One tends to be equally violent, but more restrained. The other one is going to do what it takes to eat.
Yeah.
Now, if you take Sasquatch lore, you got the Canadian Yukon Sasquatch, which is very similar to the Oregon, Washington Sasquatch, even the Alaskan Sasquatch. They're very docile, peaceful. They don't really mess with you. Then you got skunk ape. Well, if you think about the Yeti in Tibet, that is supposedly a violent bastard.
Yeah.
And then, are you familiar with the Dyatlov Pass incident?
Oh, yes. 100%.
Well, that area of the mountains, of the Ural Mountains, they have somebody who's called the Old Man of the Forest.
Yeah.
Who is extremely territorial and violent.
Right.
And there's tribes of indigenous Yugo people that live there that really haven't seen the outside world since the communist bloc fell in the 80s.
Wow.
Or the 90s. So, if you take the stories from the Dyatlov Pass area, Tibet, the more inhospitable mountain ranges, and the tougher area, they tend to be more territorial, aggressively violent. Now, that also doesn't take in for the fact that how much we don't know about these creatures. Do they have any socio-political mentalities? Are they strictly animalistic in their nature, or have they developed some higher brain function, have cultural norms and taboos? there's a lot of theories that they do. A lot of people in the cryptozoology field do honestly believe they are social creatures, like a pack of silverback gorillas,
right,
or your chimpanzee groups. But there's theories they bury their dead. There's theories that how much are they to our early ancestors? Are they strictly at, eat, poop, make babies,
right,
sleep? Or are they almost at the line of, cave paintings, and do they have a religion of some type? You don't know.
Well, there's a lot of stories of people gifting with Sasquatch, and they'll give them little marbles or coins, military memorabilia and stuff that they found in the ground, shiny stuff, cool looking rocks. So that shows a type of understanding of something,
Take your average crows and ravens of your Corvus family of birds.
Yeah.
The average raven is intellectually smart as a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
They can differentiate human faces. There has stories of people that, treat these birds nicely, feed them, give them things. There's stories of them leaving pebbles, nickels, keychains, gifting back. So the smarter creatures tend to have these abilities. Some animals use it as a mating sequence. Penguins would give a pebble.
Right.
So if that's the case, and we do have something that's sitting at dolphin, higher end primate intelligent functions, not quite sentient life or sapient, but still emotionally developed at some point, you start seeing that a lot of this territorial stuff makes sense, because now instead of it just being a living area, what if this is a sacred site? Like, I'm not talking in the strict words of like Sasquatch God, or Bro Squatch Jesus is going to come back and save the hairy people kind. I'm not saying that, but
right.
What if they're like how early man was, wood spirits, water spirits, areas where they bury their dead?
Right.
And you look at these areas and encroachments, and that's where they tend to be. Even the more pacifist Sasquatch communities tend to say, hey, this is somewhere you don't need to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn up the freaky factor about 5. And then you start getting the howls, the wood knocks.
Right.
Now, there's another theory I saw recently on a research that was done. Are you familiar with the term infrasonic?
Yeah, I've heard
ultrasonic.
I've heard about that. Yeah, they claim that tigers can do that as well.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, all large mammals do it. Tigers, some elephants, things like that. So it would be a good defense mechanism, because 90%, if you look at a basic primate, we don't got much for natural defense. We got a thinker. Our cauliflower is what saves the day 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So you don't got claws, you don't got teeth. Now, there are some things biologically we can look at that the Sasquatch does have in its favor. If you look at a chimpanzee, its muscle fiber tendon strength is 1.5 that of a human.
Right.
A gorilla is sitting about 9 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Sad part is they can't swim because they're so dense they sink. But there are a few Sasquatch stories where that starts to come into play and make sense. That one we were researching earlier about the dude kayaking, and it came and waded into the water. It probably spooked him, encroached upon him, so he waded out in the water to bloister him out of his area.
Right.
But there's a certain point he got where he turned around and went back.
Yeah.
So you got to think, these things can snap trees, twist them off. You're familiar with tree twisting, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that amount of power leaves super dense muscles. And we're not even talking about the bones and ligaments they're attached to.
Right.
So they're probably not extremely aquatic, but they do require water for survival.
Now with tree leans, a lot of people believe that is marking territories, or, hey, humans are around here, back out, be careful here. Besides tree leans and things like that, what would a creature like Sasquatch need with strength like that? There are videos of Sasquatch throwing whole logs, stories of Sasquatch with whole logs, using them as weapons, like
kill a pig, like I talked about earlier in the show.
Right.
Well, nowadays, primarily hunting for prey.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at the lineage these creatures have gone on. If they haven't deviated from the evolutionary track like we did, they're still set at that Gigantopithecus time line on they're just from a genetic level. If we go off of the missing link theory, so you fast forward back to our first ice age. What'd you have in the area of just North America?
Yeah.
You had saber-toothed tiger. Sorry about that.
That's scary.
Yeah, but no, you had a saber-toothed tiger. You had the timber wolves.
Right.
You had the dire wolves. You had the giant sloths. You had the mastodons. You had early man. There are fossilized records that prove that our ancestors went to war with our other ancestors. There's two theories. A, we either murdered them all, or B, somebody had one hell of a dry spell and decided to make babies with one. So there's two main theories. That one is we went out and killed everybody that wasn't Homo sapien. And there's another one that says maybe our genetic family tree doesn't have as many branches and maybe a few more braids in it. But for that, as you're talking, that raw strength of power, as of now, they really don't need it except to hunt, but that's what makes them an apex predator.
Right.
But 100,000, 150,000 years ago, they're not as smart as we were, so they didn't rely on the old thinker as much as we did, so they didn't have that tool development and fire and, socializing and domestication that we started developing.
So it was just necessity.
What they needed to survive. You got to think what they were going up against at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
And a lot of people will say, well, if that's the case, how come they're still around if humans were the dominant species? I can't remember the scientific name of the fish, but there is a fish that was believed to be extinct since the Ice Age.
The coelacanth.
Coelacanth. That was it. Thank you very much. We found proof of them about, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Declared by science extinct.
Right. They had been eating them
and
in this other country.
One of these days, a fishing boat just pulls 3 up the net. Like, hey, guys, what's going on? I ain't seen you in a while.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, there's also...
There's a video I watched the other day of a guy. Apparently, this guy is trying to prove that the Tasmanian tiger is still alive.
I saw that too.
He has video proof of him.
And it's very intriguing footage.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because there are literally hundreds of animals that have been declared extinct throughout the years.
Right.
That people believe may still exist. And honestly, everybody's like, well, humans have populated so much of the globe. I was like, if you really think about it, I mean, down to the nutshell, if you pull up a map of the world, 90% of your populace is in towns or cities. We're not, random people living out in the woods as much as many of us would love to.
Right.
And the people that do really don't have the technological advancements they need to say, hey, I found this cool creepy critter out in the woods. Do I poke it with a stick or not?
Right.
So there's just so much we don't know, but also factor in how much has been seen that just hasn't been reported. Because if you got an area of like a small village in Eastern Europe somewhere that's real secluded from the modern world, and they got some form of cryptid, to them it's normal. Everybody in that village has seen it. It's like saying, hey, I found this cool largemouth bass. It's just as normal. To us, that largemouth bass might have been extinct for 150 years, and we're like, oh my God, hey, cool. Look what came back.
Right.
But to them, it's, yeah, we got like 30 of them. I'll catch you one tomorrow.
And that's the biggest thing, the biggest problem in modern cryptozoology, in my opinion, is people who either think it's the everyday norm in another country, or the biggest problem here is afraid that someone else will call them crazy or call them stupid.
I agree with you 110% on that. Social stigmas are what I think the biggest hindrance to the cryptozoology field as a whole right now.
Yeah.
Too many people will see things and just say, you know what, I'm crazy, I was hallucinating.
Yeah.
Somebody put mushrooms on my pizza. And leave it at that. But the point is, until we get that level of acceptance that people realize that there's not a stigma attached to it, I think that's what it's going to take for 80% of our cryptids to go from science fiction to science fact.
Right.
It's gonna, the more people you have reporting, the more serious thoughts you have put into expeditions. 90% of all cryptozoological expeditions are, mom and pop, local grassroots level like me, and the groups of people I try to get together with to go out in the woods with. Or, Discovery Channel or History Channel wants to make a new monster show.
And waste time beating on trees and screaming.
Oh, don't get me started on tree knocking.
Dude.
But the thing is, it makes good television.
It
and
does.
I'm all for the TV shows. Don't tell me I am not knocking those television shows because they drum up interest.
Yeah.
The more people we have interested in this field, the more people we have researching it, taking an actual scientific process and theory to their research, the more concrete, hard evidence we're going to get.
But the problem you get with that is you have stupid people who watch it and think, oh, I'm going to run in the woods and I'm going to beat on a tree. And everyone else, well, they don't know they're going out and doing it, and then that person ends up in the news mauled by a bear. Because it's always a bear. It's always a bear.
I got a name for them. I call them frat boy scientists.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, personal opinion here, but it goes same in the paranormal field.
Yeah.
Like you take people that do the spiritual research, the ghost hunters.
Yeah.
You got serious scientific developments into the paranormal sciences of that.
Right.
And then you got frat boys. That show that comes on Sci-Fi Channel. I don't remember the name of it. But they pretty much act like a bunch of drunken frat boys trying to pick a fight.
Ghost Adventures or something.
Or whatever it is. But, yeah, it makes excellent television.
All right.
But you're harming your field more than you're helping. And I'm sorry. When you're out in nature, these are still wild animals. You need to come in with the respect and observance. Because the fact that you're out in the woods in the first place already makes you different from the everyday environment. And animals, if anything, are routine.
Oh, God, yeah. This is their area. That is their home. They are built
24/7.
They are programmed to be in the woods. We are programmed now to live in cities, to live in homes. When we walk into the woods, we make so much noise. I don't care how good of a hunter you think you are, how quiet you are. These creatures live there all the time. They absolutely know you are there. As soon as you step into those woods.
Not even including scent. Think about it. Your diet affects so much of your natural scent.
Right.
Processed foods, sugars, body washes, soaps, toothpaste we use.
Everything.
Me, when I do an expedition, I'm not going to lie. I'm like this one I'm planning at Blackwater. It's going to start off 2 weeks before where I'm just using charcoal scrub as a toothpaste, which does get your mouth clean and it does help hydrogen peroxide for a mouthwash, but it's scent free. Regular unscented lye soap just to bathe up, keep my hair oils right. But I'm also going to start changing how I eat. It's going to go to a lot of spinach, a lot of proteins, no oils, flavoring, seasonings, because those things will stick to you.
Oh, yeah. Garlic just penetrates out.
Yeah,
Garlic's in
it doesn't
everything.
matter if it's in an area of garlic occurs naturally,
Right.
or spearmint occurs naturally.
Those are the things you have to
But
think about.
if it doesn't occur naturally, the wind's going to blow right, and you're going to stand out like pretty much the equivalent of a sweaty hobo on an underpass saying, "Hey, Bo, let me hold $1."
Right. It's things you got to think about.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, amateur expeditions are great. I'm all for them, but be respectful when you enter because you already stand out like a sore thumb. And for you, tree knocking, hooting, hollering, whistling, yeah, it seems cool. And you're like, but do you know what you're saying? I don't know what I'm saying.
Right.
Does tree knocking to me mean, hey, I'm over here? Or does tree knocking to me mean, hey, I'm about to F you up, go get you boys?
Right. You
We
have no
don't
idea
know.
what you're doing. Yeah. Hooping and hollering like the Sierra sounds.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. I'll put a link in the description. That is an amazing video, actually. A couple of guys out there recorded some sounds that just blow my mind. Oh man!
Is that the one where they're actually vocalizing and it almost sounds like a speech pattern?
Yeah, I need to do more research in it. I stumbled across it. I'm embarrassed. I don't know more about it.
I listened to it, and there are some vocal baritones to it that make me feel like it's a larger animal, but at the same time, with voice distortion and modern editing techniques, that's another thing. Science development of technology has been great for the field, but it has been a hindrance at the same time.
Yeah.
Because photoshopping, digital editing, CGI effects, everybody can have that has the knowledge to do it, can create very vivid, realistic videos, sounds, comments, and footage. And it makes your job harder. Makes my job harder.
Yeah.
Because now do I want to go spend 2 hours walking around the woods where somebody snapped a snapshot of the Sasquatch, and it turns out that this dude decided to eat a bag of cheese puffs and spend 3 hours making an amazing quality Photoshop.
Right. Yeah, to get 15 minutes of
And think about it. You take that photo goes online, and all the cryptozoologists, amateur or otherwise in the area, now have to decide, is this real or not? And if say it's fake and they think it's real, and they go out in the woods and actually start doing a hard investigation, you're missing all the stuff over there because everybody's concentrating over here.
Yeah, 100%. I want to get back to the to going out in the woods. There's a lot of things out there that a lot of people don't know about, and I try to stress safety in the woods. And in a lot of my videos, people get attacked all the time, and I feel like if they were more knowledgeable about certain things, Sasquatch, Dogman, their chance of survival would go up a lot higher if they had a prior knowledge about it.
Oh, totally agree. And not just that, you hear stories of people, hiker mauled by a bear, as you hinted on earlier. But not just think about that. How many stories have you heard of somebody go missing?
Right.
Never to be found again.
Never.
And what is the first thing their family says? This dude knows these woods like the back of his hands. He is an outdoors expert. Yeah. He's a survivalist. He knows all these tips and tricks, but somehow he got lost. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking of the stories where people claim attacks, but how many missing persons cases in these areas, like up in Northwest America, the Dyatlov Pass area, all the hikers, hunters, snowers, even down here in Florida, how many hunters you heard of go out in the Everglades every year and just don't come back?
Open missing 411, literally any of them.
Yeah. Who's to say they didn't come encounter someone?
It's hinted at in those books, but I think 90% of them, to be honest with you.
Honestly, a high 70 at the least.
Yeah, definitely.
If I'm being extremely conservative on a low ball.
There was one I read a couple of weeks ago, actually blew my mind. I believe it was 2 little kids. They went missing from their family. They were searching for them. The hikers or the police, the park rangers, whoever it was that was searching for them, went through this one area a lot, never found them. At the very end, they said, hey, we're going to search it again. They searched this area, and one of the kids popped his head out of a log. Now, this is miles away from where they were originally found, right? Yeah. Originally went missing. Kid popped his head out, said, here we are. They pulled him out, took care of them. They said they were malnourished. They asked him, why were you hiding? Why didn't you come out? They said, well, first we were running away from a bear, right? We were hiding from a bear in the log. But then we stayed because there was a big monkey that was looking for us. This is in America. What? A large monkey, a big monkey. What does that mean? Come on.
And common consensus is going to be, well, they're children, they tell tall tales. But if you got a kid that's gone long enough to get lost in the woods and hide in a log for 8 hours to the point of malnutrition, it stops being an overactive imagination. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fight or flight.
Yeah. That is strictly instinct kicked in.
Yeah.
That is genetic level memory.
Right.
And honestly, people are going to say what they're going to say about that. But I would tend to believe that one. If I had a chance to research it more in depth.
Right.
Hear the depositions from the children, the search parties.
Right.
Now, another thing that got brought up, you're talking about gifting and stones. Mm-hmm. There's also other weird things that people have reported, rock throwing.
Oh, yeah.
They're never directly, have you noticed in every story involving rock throwing, they're never directly aimed at them.
I've noticed that. Yeah, definitely. They throw them around.
It's 2 feet short, mm-hmm. 2 feet to the left, behind them. And I started thinking, why would a large simian animal do this? Did some research, different animals, how they behaviors. Well, unfortunately, I don't got too many animals to go off of for stone throwing.
Right.
Because that tends to be higher level brain function simians. But if you start looking and expanding what it could represent, you get more examples. I think it's a herding instinct. If you got something in your area you don't want there, every rock you throw is cutting off a direction. If I'm standing in the woods and you're directly in front of me and I start throwing a rock just before you, what are you going to do?
I'm not going to go forward.
If a rock starts falling behind you, what are you going to do?
Go forward.
And when you hear stories of these rock throwings, it's over a course of a mile and a half.
Right.
So I feel like it's a herding instinct. You're in my area. I want you out, but I don't want you to see me, and I don't want to hurt you.
And I think you're onto something with that. I've read a lot about that, actually, being thrown in your area, not at you. And a lot of people do exactly what you're saying. They leave the area opposite of where the rocks are being thrown. Also, another behavior that I've noticed as well, when people are in the woods, they'll hear a whoop or a tree knock in front of them, right? They'll keep going. It'll get louder or more aggressive, or they'll say they get false charged, like a bear would do, right? Then they would hear a hoop to the left, right? So they start running. They panic. They go the other way. The other way always leads them back to the trail. They very rarely, I can't think of anywhere they get completely lost in the woods.
No, 90% of your Sasquatch chase stories involve when it chased me up to the road.
They heard them
and
out of the woods.
And they crouched down.
Yep.
And if you look at sheepdogs, they're not throwing rocks, but they bark, they do aggressive mannerisms, they kick the grass, and they're constantly cutting off flanks and fronts, or chasing the rear end, nipping at the heels of whatever livestock they're herding. And when you take these stories of people being chased out of the woods and you overlay it to how a sheepdog runs on the field, you start seeing some corresponding behavioral patterns.
You really do. You really do. Do you think that may kind of bleed into their hunting habits as well?
I honestly do.
I've thought about that.
Because deer spookies, I don't know. I've known some people that, bringing up how quiet you mean the woods, I know some people that spear hunt deer. I'm never on that level.
Whoa.
I'll spear hunt hog, but it involves a snare trap. But when you look at when you run dogs for deer hunting, even as a primate, our hunting technique, I'm going to let a bunch of dogs loose in the woods, and I'm going to set up at where this thing is coming out.
Right.
So let's say you got a Sasquatch up in a tree with about a 3-inch round log on a game trail. You got Sasquatch. I've seen how fucking fluid they move. Pardon for the language. I didn't mean to let that slip. But I've seen how fluid they move. There's a dexterity to these creatures that I think is often not hinted on. So with their stride, their gauge, their speeds, one Sasquatch hunting a deer would probably be an affair, but he could do it. You get 3 or 4 of them together, and we've already got so much circumstantial evidence that proves they are social creatures, that they live in organizations of some type. You want to call it a pod, a family, a society, however you want to label it. So if they're still in a hunter-gatherer level of existence, your hunters are out there herding deer, and then one just drops out of a tree and lays the hammer blow down on this deer, which corresponds with that hunter story I told you, how he jumped out of the woods and clubbed the hog.
Right.
But you hear so many stories of, like up in Canada, Sasquatch around blueberry bushes, walnut trees, different places. There's a bunch of foraging Sasquatch stories. So if these societies are on a hunter-gatherer level, it would be also explain the gross miscorrelations between the two sightings. You either have a peaceful Sasquatch encounter or a somewhat aggressive. Right. You rarely have a peaceful that turns aggressive. Rarely. So if you take in the mentalities of hunter-gatherers versus, just the gatherers, if you've disrupted a hunting part, you disrupt my hunting trip, I'm going to be mad as hell.
And not just that, these like you said earlier, every calorie counts for these creatures. Food could mean I miss food today. Now I am too weak to hunt. I could die. Now if you catch me out in my garden picking black-eyed peas, right?
Oh hey, how you doing?
We can go to the store and get a steak.
But still, even without needing it, my mental thought processes and my emotional level has changed on 2 different set of examples. One, I'm hunting. I am out in the woods. I am trying to get meat from my freezer. You come tromping through, breaking sticks, talking loud, acting like an asshat.
Yeah.
You done scared everything away for miles.
Right.
I'm mad.
Oh, yeah.
You come rolling up while I'm picking blackberries in the woods. Oh, hey, what's up? Didn't think I'd see another person here. How you doing?
Right. And the latter could mean you're on the menu.
Yeah. Which would explain many cases.
Right.
Because honestly, I hate to say it, we don't have physical proof or a mangled body. We don't, even if we do have a mangled body, we don't got dental records, bite radiuses, or anything like that of a physical Sasquatch specimen to prove that it was a Sasquatch that attacked and consumed these people. Except for the Deadlock Pass case where they talk about the missing tongues and cheeks.
I'm not going to sit here for a second and say that there haven't been Sasquatch killed.
Same here.
Bodies found and taken away by people. Who? I don't know. There are some theories. A lot of people believe that national forestry departments, logging companies, different companies like this who have connections are covering up and suppressing the information of Sasquatch. Could you imagine what would happen if people found out that Sasquatch would exist or does exist?
I can exactly imagine. I'm not saying it's a case that these companies or these institutions are doing this, but let's look at it. We'll humor this.
Okay.
Take your basic run-of-the-mill gopher turtle. You familiar with a gopher turtle?
Oh, yeah.
It's federally protected.
Yeah.
You can't mess with them. You can't touch them. Do you know every gopher turtle hole, an X amount of feet radius from that hole is now federally protected and cannot be molested land?
I didn't know that, but
yes,
I could believe it.
So let's take prime logging real estate. You know, you got yellow pine, you got these genetically engineered pine trees from these experimental forests down south where they develop new strands of trees and they just seed the grounds with them.
Yeah.
That is primo money for building, construction, lumber, all that. That's a big money corporation.
Definitely.
What would happen if, let's say tomorrow, God forbid, something happened, I was out in the woods on one of my expeditions, and I got charged by Sasquatch because I was being one of those frat boy cryptozoologists and I had to shoot.
Right.
I'm not saying I would, but let's just, for sake of argument, somebody shoots the Sasquatch, goes to the Smithsonian and say, here's your body.
Yep.
What is the national outcry going to be for protective management of these creatures?
Dude, it's going to be huge.
You've already heard stories of a certain type of fish shutting down whole development swaths of a town.
Right.
What's this going to do to lumber, parks, and rec?
Oh, not
You
just
now
that.
got a new federally protected large primate animal in America that requires X amount of acreages for a viable environment.
Oh, yeah. And, dude, so we've seen what Sasquatch looks like with the pictures, right? It is very humanoid. You're going to have people coming out of the woodwork. This is a humanoid creature. This creature deserves human rights. You know?
Which I would, honestly, this is my thing. It would depend on the sentient level of the creature.
Right.
If we are talking early man, like where we're talking like pre-caveman, you know, not quite fire tool mastery, but there's emotional development. There is thought recognition, facial recognition. Right. I would be all for these creatures having rights.
Oh, 100%.
Even if they're not and they're just baseline primates, I still feel like, yes, I'm a hunter, but I'm a conservationist first.
Right.
I feel like these creatures should be protected. Their environment should be protected.
Right. And we can't just take these things out of the woods and do how we did years ago and put them in reservations like Indians.
Not even that. Or people will try to do zoos or circuses.
You can't do that.
How many different species of primates have you heard that when you try to put them in captivity, they wither away and die?
Right. People are going to come out and fight for their rights.
Which I am all for.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But the problem comes with
now,
these
to a
huge
logging
corporations.
Company, to a logging company,
100%.
You just pissed at my Cheerios.
Oh,
my
God.
bottom line just got jacked with.
Because we don't know how many there are, how much resources we're going to have to put into
figuring
out where they're at.
Are we talking Sasquatch as a genus or actual species?
Right.
Does this broadly encroach multiple similarly, visible features?
Right.
Are we talking Sasquatch is Sasquatch in Tibet, Sasquatch is Sasquatch in Florida? Or is it, you got jaguars, cougars, tigers?
Right, yeah.
Where's the delineation from one group to another?
Yeah.
Because each one's going to have its own subset and requirements.
The world's going to be at a standstill if that happens.
Honestly, I don't think so. I really think it'd be a case of, meh, that's cool.
Yeah, you think that?
Honestly, I do. I mean, in the last year, the Department of the Navy pretty much came out and said UFOs are real.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much have.
What happened?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, hey, cool. Let's go raid Area 51, make some dank-ass memes, call it done.
Yeah. Yeah. And then COVID happened.
The Rona, the ultimate.
Yeah.
I don't want to get started on that subject.
I don't know. A lot of money will be lost, though. And I could see why someone would want to cover it up.
Now, that also doesn't include, ranchers, people living in, cabins, weekend hunters that go out in the woods and spend their vacations in the lockout. Yeah, how many people have shot one?
Oh,
you also got to think these creatures are social. A lot of primates bury their dead. So it might not just be, an institution takes the body. It's these creatures themselves may have some form of rudimentary proto-spiritual system of some type, which requires a burial ceremony.
You're not wrong.
Which goes back to leaning trees and stuff like that.
Right.
If you look at early pagan man in Ireland and Scotland, they what was called fagates, bent trees. Or fairy rings, the way certain mushrooms would grow. These were considered sacred areas.
Yeah.
You take bent trees, it might be their early version of an altar. We don't know.
Right.
But for just as much as it could be territorial, it could also be some sort of proto-spiritual movement within these large, developed creatures.
Yeah. Anything's possible at this point. We really we don't know enough about it. It's hard to find a bear body, as proliferant as those things are, to go out in the woods and find bones of a bear.
Hell.
Once an animal dies and other creatures start eating on that body, decomposition sets in, bones are dragged off, good luck.
I've been hunting since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. You know how many wild deer skulls I found out in the woods?
I have found
2.
one.
I found 2.
Right. I found one when I was a kid, and I took the teeth out and made a necklace out of it.
But yeah, I mean, what can you do?
Yeah.
But the point is, as long as the mysteries are there, and there's people that just hate mysteries. Well, I wouldn't say you hate mysteries, you love mysteries. You got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Like, I got a passion for it because I saw something way back in Tuskegee National Forest that creeped me the hell out, and I wanted to know more about it.
Right.
But as long as that interest is getting drummed up and more people are going out in the woods and looking, as long as they're doing it respectfully, smartly, and science-based, I think sometime before our grandchildren's end of their life, we will have an answer to the question of what is Sasquatch? Is it real?
I hope you're right. I unfortunately have never had any kind of sighting like that. No paranormal sighting whatsoever in my life. But with this much information out, the photographs, the stories, all over the world, it is my opinion, and my opinion only, that you have to be a fool to not believe in some of these things. You have to. I've never been to New York, but I have seen so many pictures and so many people tell me that this place exists.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's real.
Well, to me, I find proof in our past.
Right.
There's so many things that are just a reoccurrence through human societies around the globe.
Right.
All right, let's take, going off on a limb here. We're going to take vampires. I'm not saying they are real. I'm not saying they're not. I personally think they're not.
Okay.
But would have let me leave it at a maybe and just not dwell on it. The world really hasn't had global travel since, the East India Trading Company and the spice trades, or Alexander the Great. But how is it the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, the Mayan tribes, and the Incan tribes had legends of a blood-sucking, night-dwelling creature? And then you got the same thing in Russia. Or different. I'm not saying vampires, but let's take large wolf man.
Okay.
I'm not saying werewolves like I'm a dude. I'm going to change into a human.
Right.
But what if there was a large type of, bipedal-esque canine of some type? Mm-hmm. There's stories about them in Europe, China, Japan, Russia, Mexico, even New World Indian tribes have these things. How are these corresponding stories been around since our prehistory before we had the ability to travel and set these legends in place?
It is really strange that you brought that up. And I want to stress the fact that these episodes are not scripted whatsoever. What he's bringing up is completely off the cuff. I want to say, Ansley, it's really strange that you brought that up, because my next episode that I plan on doing after this episode is completed, I was going to call it Cynocephaly, Dog-Headed Man.
Oh.
And the entire episode I was going to dedicate to Dogman. Throughout history, how has nearly every society throughout our history painted pictures, has oral and written records of dog-headed people? It is amazing.
Oh, it is. It's extremely intriguing. And in fact, there's a bunch of stories and information I've read on it. It's an amazing subject. I personally haven't seen enough modern sightings or heard of a lot of modern sightings, so I really don't research it. I tend to stick to I do enjoy cryptids as a whole, but I kind of got my main areas I go to.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm recently getting more into the paranormal because I just feel like there's so much more to our existence than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
Especially with things like, scientists theorizing that they can create an interdimensional opening within the next 3 years. MIT's working on it.
Yeah.
So
that's
when you get into that, we're finding more and more proof that the theory of different dimensional relativities exist. Mm-hmm. You start opening your eyes at what more could be possible.
Right.
So there's a lot more. I'm researching it now, but I would say Sasquatch and local cryptids along those lines are my bread and butter. I do research and dabble in a little bit of everything. I'm just not as well versed on those subjects.
Yeah. Have you actually read anything about what MIT's doing with dark matter?
Dark matter, I think it was a byproduct of their God particle experimentation, which was a new photon that proved to actually delineate from linear time.
Yeah.
Like, it proved that time travel is a theoretical possibility.
That stuff's scary.
Oh, it's amazing.
They said that they actually isolated some, apparently, and in the room around it, things get weird. They say that things start to actually phase in and out of reality.
Well, if you go off string theory of relativity, every dimension's a string, and they vibrate on a wavelength.
Right.
Well, if you look at radios, right? How many times have you got a radio station that started picking up on another station?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Because their frequencies were similar enough that the wavelengths were overlapping. Who says that doesn't happen if the dimensional theories are real, multiple dimensional theories are real, and each dimension does operate on a wavelength? Mm-hmm. Overlap would make sense, which would explain, going back to cryptozoology, these weird creatures that exist outside of our biological normal diversities. If there is overlap and overhang and pass through, that might explain why we have some creatures that are just so off the cuff.
So you're getting into different territory here. You're starting to. Are you one of the people that believe that Sasquatch can travel in and out of portals?
No, not so much that. I honestly don't believe there's teleporting Sasquatch. I look at what was presented with that whole, God particle interdimensional theory thing.
Yeah.
And my thing is if you do have dimensions overlapping, for that period of time they overlap, what's stopping something from getting stuck on the wrong area?
Yeah.
Like, take the Mandela effect. So if you think about it along that line, I remember that movie. Nobody else here does. So what stops somebody from getting stuck on the wrong side of that frequency when it does overlap?
Yeah.
No.
That's not wrong.
So I think you could have, I don't think, maybe, who knows, Sasquatch aren't indigenous to our timeline or this dimension.
Yeah.
But they're here now.
It's all theories.
It's until we have proof, it's theory.
Yeah.
As long as you can have science to back it, it's a viable theory. Doesn't make it a right theory. Me personally, I believe that Sasquatch are indigenous to Earth. They are not aliens. They don't time travel. They don't phase in and out. I think they're just a really elusive large primate that naturally exists in our world order. And through evolution and the progress of time, we deviated so far from them, but they've maintained isolated communities and development where they have stagnated evolutionally, but they still maintain at a primate, apex predator level that they don't need to evolve.
Yeah.
Their needs are met. They're fed, they're watered, they make babies, they poop, they live, they die.
What more do you need?
As long as you have that, you're good.
Yeah. And when you look at man, we're soft and weak.
But
we got big brains.
But think about it. You take a man from today, and you take a man from the time of Alexander the Great.
Yeah. Completely different.
I guarantee you, in physical attributes and reflexes, we are different.
Oh, God, yeah.
We're smarter than they are.
Yeah.
But for the past 10 generations, we've gotten to a point in our society where dominant, desirable effects and attributes haven't really dissuaded how we procreate.
Yeah.
As a female's not going to go, he's big, he's strong, I'm going to make babies with him because I want to be protected and I want my kids fed.
Yeah. He's a good hunter-gatherer.
Yeah. It don't matter now.
Right.
It goes off of who you like, who you love, how you feel.
How much money you got in your bank account.
Pretty much. Which may be some residual overlap to the whole hunter-gatherer thing. Like, there's some instincts we just ain't going to shake. I just don't think there is a driving magnetic force as they were once for us.
Right.
Sasquatch doesn't have that issue.
Yeah.
He still hunts. He still gathers. His life is simpler. So, but at the same time, he's an apex predator. An alligator hasn't had to change since the Cretaceous period. But it didn't need to. It just got smaller. But at the end of the day, it's theory. Just as you have your theories and thoughts, and other people have their theories and thoughts on the subject of cryptozoology and Sasquatch as a whole. Until we have physical specimens, they're just theories. They're thoughts. I have mine, you have yours, and the listener has theirs.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I want to thank you for stopping by. I really want you to come back on, actually. I really enjoyed our conversation tonight. It was super engaging. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody listening learned a lot too.
I'd be glad to come back. Anytime I can share my love and passion of cryptozoology or just the outside natural world is a good day for me. So anytime you'd love to have me on, I'd love to be here.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do this again very, very soon. I want to make this a regular thing. How's that sound?
Sounds good with me, man.
Awesome. Well, for everybody out there listening, I want to thank you for stopping by Nightmare Creatures Podcast. And remember, there's no such things as fairy tales.